your home for Northeast Ohio soccer. This is Breaking Lanes.
Welcome back to Breaking Lanes. I am your host, Logan Conger, and we're back with another episode, and joining me today is a very special guest, Brady Catanzarite from Manta Soccer Club, Manta United, and Walsh Jesuit High School, just down the road from Kronis Academy. Brady, thanks so much for taking the time to be here today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
It's long overdue. We've been talking about this for a few weeks now.
Yep.
Brady just made a very special announcement just a few days ago. We'll definitely get into that. But Brady, I'll jump right over to you, get right into it. What brought you to the game of soccer?
I think it was really a family thing for me. I know I had a lot of impact from my father, my uncles, everybody who's kind of paved the way for me to get to this point. My dad played Division I soccer. My dad started his own club eventually. So I think it was really just a testament to everybody that has helped me get to this point.
Talk about some of your early experiences. Obviously, you mentioned your dad started his own club, but that was only a few years ago. So where did you start out yourself? How did you start playing the game?
Yeah, so I started with Strongsville Travel, testament to all my time there. Strongsville's where I'm from. I loved it. Then eventually I made my way over to Concordia, played there for about a year or two, went over to Cleveland Force, Cleveland CFC, whatever you want to call it now. But eventually got over to Manta. So it was just a lot of different clubs that helped me, a lot of different people that helped me get to this point. Started out as a defender, as my kind of upbringing. That was kind of my center mid role, and then eventually got my way up top towards the more recent part of my soccer career. But yeah.
When did you start to realize that you might be a striker instead of a center back defender? When did that kind of come into play for you?
I think it was more post-puberty when I got less enough for some of the speed that I got and the athleticism that some of my parents gifted down to me very graciously. So I think once I realized that my athleticism can play a big part in the type of player that I am was the moment that I realized that maybe scoring goals was what I'm meant to do.
In your early years in club soccer, travel soccer, what are some things that really brought you to enjoy the game? It doesn't even have to be necessarily about soccer. You can talk about your teammates, talk about your coaches. What brought you to just really enjoy the game?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it was my teammates and my coaches and everybody that really made it feel like a family. You know, my favorite part of the day was looking forward to getting out to practice and being in a community with 20, 15, however many guys you want to have in a team at the point. But I think getting out there and meeting with a ton of guys that I go to school with and that I'm going to see and that I get to play with on the weekends is really something special for me that made me keep coming back.
Can you pinpoint any game early on in your soccer career that you remember that just was something special to you at all?
Ooh. All right, let's go with, I was playing for Concordia at the time.
Okay.
I was playing goalkeeper, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a Kronis Academy goalkeeper. Fortunately, didn't go down that path, but I was playing in goal. Let one go right through my hands. Just pretty tough on me, and then decided I got pulled out of there, went up top, and scored 2 goals in that game. So I think that turning point for me was really focusing that I really love the game. Even the ups and the downs doesn't really matter to me. It's more of just the thrill and the pure enjoyment I get from actually playing the game.
Absolutely. One thing I can definitely relate to you on is having your dad as a coach. Now, the only difference is you listened to your dad, hence why you're here today. I did not. That's why I'm just the podcast guy at this point. What was that like growing up with your dad being a coach? Did he coach all your younger teams, or was he a parent at any time?
Yeah, so I was a baseball player growing up too. He was head coach on those teams. He was my soccer coach as well. So I think just him going through a lot of similar experiences that I had growing up was really beneficial to me. Obviously, everything he's going to tell me, and just like you, I probably didn't listen to him as much as I could have, but definitely some input and some different things that he's told me throughout the years were extremely beneficial to who I've become as a person and as a player. I've enjoyed every minute of it, so I really credit to my father for a lot of the things that I've been able to do throughout my career.
Aside from high school, what was your favorite team that he coached that you were a part of?
Ooh, probably my current Manta team. He's not the coach anymore, but my Manta 2007 boys were very special to me, and I know to him that was the first team that he brought over to Manta, the first team that he got to coach. So I think for him it's very special, but for me too, because that was kind of when I started to really fall in love with soccer, and he was definitely a good part of that.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Manta a little bit before we get into your high school career. When your parents were deciding on building this club, did you have any conversations with them about what it would be like and maybe coming over to play? How did that come about for you?
So to be honest with you, I thought it was a little crazy up with that at first. My dad was a lawyer for 15 years. He was the youngest partner at one of the biggest firms in Cleveland. So he definitely enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed telling people that my dad was a lawyer at the time, but it wasn't his passion. He knew it wasn't what he wanted to do, wasn't what he was meant to do. So he came home one day late at night and told me and my mom and my siblings that he wanted to start his own soccer club. We kind of looked at him like he was crazy because at the time it really did seem like he was, but that was pre-COVID. And then sort of building up on that, trying to figure out what's going to be published, where we're going to start, what facilities can we buy, who's going to come play for us, who's going to coach. Everything kind of went into the decision-making process, which was really big in our family at first. And then once COVID hit, ultimately it kind of slowed everything down, but it was also kind of a blessing because it allowed us to spend more time together and kind of figure out what was really important for the club, which was definitely beneficial in the end.
Obviously, another important person in your life is your mom. Your mom has had a huge influence on Manta United as well. Talk about her role and how you've helped her go through that.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was staying home at the time. I saw her every day after school. She's obviously my best friend. And then when Manta started, that was really when she took a huge beneficial role. She's all in payroll. She does everything with the field house as well. So Manta doesn't happen without her. You want to talk about my dad, but she's definitely the main reason that it does what it does today.
Manta's obviously a club too as well that has grown a lot in popularity. You guys have pink and black colors, very, very noticeable. What went into the color scheme of Manta? Did you have any influence? Did your siblings, your parents? What went into the pink and black color scheme of Manta United?
Going back to my dad kind of being a crazy guy, when he first told us the pink idea, we were like, well, pink, you're going to get made fun of. Maybe people don't like it, whatever. But pink has definitely been the reason that the club has been so big, in my opinion. Our slogan now is the pink team from Ohio. You go to a tournament, you see the pink, you notice the pink, you know who it is.
Sure.
So, I personally at the beginning wasn't convinced on the pink, but nowadays, obviously, the pink is what made Manta what it is.
Talk about some of the early seasons with the club. It's established. Your dad's the head director. You have your mom involved, your whole family. How did you guys get players to come in? And did you have any influence just as a player yourself? And were you nervous at all about switching clubs despite it being your families?
So start with me. Obviously the recruitment end on my end was just trying to find the best players as possible for not only my team, but for maybe the Walsh program or Strongsville kids that I join up with. There's different things and different people that I know can make an impact on the club. For my parents and for everybody involved in the original creation of Manta, it was just about doing things the right way. We weren't really happy with where clubs in the past had kind of led us in the development things on that end. So for us and for my parents and for, like I said, everybody involved, it was really just about creating the best atmosphere and creating the best development. The early days of the club maybe didn't come with as much winning as the people that wanted to or stuff like that, but we knew that was going to be a rough start at the beginning just because our goal was to develop these kids and develop me as a player and all my siblings who were playing at the time just to become the best people and players as they can.
Talk about some of the teams that you've played on. How has Manta helped your development as a player?
Yes, I've been playing with the 07s for a while. We've had players come in and out, but we've, for the most part, had the same core. And I think growing up with people that I've been really comfortable with and growing up with a lot of the Manta kids coming to Walsh eventually was really cool for me. Helped me with the comfortability aspect of everything and really helped me become a better player as well.
Obviously, that's a big thing that you mentioned. Clubs tend to have a pipeline to different schools. What has it been like getting your friends to play? You pretty much play with your friends year round. You play with them at Walsh Jesuit and then you play with them in club. What's that been like in terms of team chemistry, whether it's at Walsh or Manta? How's that played out for you?
Yeah, so since our freshman year when it was only me and one of my friends, Andrew Conti at the time, that were on varsity our freshman years, who actually doesn't play Manta with me, ironically enough. But I think we knew since we were 13, 14 that if they were coming to Manta or they were coming to Walsh Jesuit that it was going to be that year that we're all grown and we will make the difference in the program. And you saw it this year with the results and how far we actually went was because of the same group of guys that, whether it was Manta or whether it was just guys that we knew playing against growing up, that the pipeline was there and that we were going to continue to try and develop kids as young as possible from Manta in 6th grade to Walsh as a senior from all the same guys. So it was really nice to develop together and learn together and become better people and players.
So let's dive into your season before your senior year at Walsh, your spring season with Manta United. Talk about how that helped you prepare for what was to come, which we'll definitely dive into. What was that season like and how did it shape you for your senior year?
Well, so that summer season, we advanced to the U.S. Club Nationals for our 3rd straight season. We went 2-0 and eventually we lost in our group stage, which didn't allow us to advance, but we had lost in the national final the year before. So our Manta team has always been extremely competitive. We knew that had the people and the coaches and everything to make a deep run. So I think just the ability to win in the playoffs from Walsh came from the ability to play at a very high level at club and play in these really important games year round. So at the point where we got to the most important ones with our Walsh season, it really wasn't as big of a deal as it might have been for some people.
What were some of those games like in that prior season? You mentioned that you made it to the club nationals for the third year in a row. What's it like competing at that level?
Competing at that level is just really special because you see some of the guys that are committed to some top programs around the country, some guys that all are very, very committed to the game of soccer. So just playing in that atmosphere, we played at the Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Denver, Colorado, which was one of the most outstanding places I've ever played. I had been to be honest with you. So playing in a place like that where everything is soccer right outside the Colorado Rapids Stadium, it's really special. So I very much enjoyed my experience there.
What would you say the difference for preparing for a club season and a high school season is, if you even view there is one?
I think for club season, it's a lot of individual training. I think you unfortunately don't really mesh with some of the guys because you aren't with them day in, day out like you are for a high school season. So I think club season is just about trying to build relationships with guys that you don't really see as much and just trying to really experience different people and where they come from and trying to mesh different things together to where once you get to Walsh, I see you at school in the morning, I drive with you to school. As soon as school ends, I'm with you for practice for 3 hours, then we're hanging out, whatever, we go get food. So I think with Walsh, it was a lot easier to build chemistry just because of the time we all spent together and for 3 years building up to a senior season, stuff like that. So
absolutely. Talk about heading into your senior year at Walsh. What were you thinking? You were a captain your junior year as well, so being a captain your senior year at Walsh wasn't anything new. But did you view it to be any differently going into the senior season? You kind of mentioned that this was going to be the year that you and your friends had thought would be the year for Walsh Jesuit. So how did you come into the year thinking?
Yeah, so I came into the year knowing that this was time for my leadership to really step up. I'm a very emotional player on and off the field. So I think my junior year, I knew that I could kind of take a back seat to some of my senior leaders and just kind of focus on me as a player. When senior year came around, I think it was my time that I knew that I kind of had to put the captain's hat on and sort of lead the team to where I knew that it could be with the players that we had developed throughout the years.
Before we get into your high school season at Walsh, let's go backtrack a little bit. Your dad gets the head coaching job, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2019, 2020 at Walsh? 2020. How are you feeling knowing you were probably going to be, not probably, you were going to be a Warrior. You knew about it long in advance. How were you feeling when your dad told you that he was going to be the head coach at Walsh?
Yeah, so my dad is a very secretive person when it comes to things like this. He likes surprises. So I didn't honestly find out until he was thinking about it until a month before when the previous coach was one of his good friends. So no bad blood between that. I wanted to go to Walsh. That was where he played. That was where all my uncles went. That was where my whole family was planning on going. So, when he got the job, it was really just the cherry on top for all of us. I knew what he was expecting of me. I knew what type of system he wanted to play. So I knew my soccer career was definitely going to take a huge step forward. But I also knew that having my dad and having somebody that I'm really comfortable with leading a program that I'm going to be stepping into blindly, because obviously I live an hour away from Walsh. I really didn't know anybody that was going there.
Sure.
I think having him there was definitely the main factor in me being able to kind of let my guard down and just be the player that I knew I could be.
And you mentioned your whole family is pretty much Walsh Jesuit. That's the best way to put it. When you were younger growing up, you knew your dad had some accolades with the program. Mm-hmm. Your family had been through it. What made you want to become a Warrior?
What made me want to become a Warrior is just the long history. I've heard stories about my uncle played in 2 state championships. Unfortunately, didn't win either of them, but it was just a long winning heritage, a long culture type of thing that I knew that I wanted to be a part of. And I knew I wanted to walk in my dad's footsteps and my uncle's footsteps and some of the guys that I grew up with that went to Walsh. So even though, like I said, I live an hour away, it really wasn't something that I was thinking about when I was in grade school. It was always something in the back of my mind that I knew that Walsh is where I wanted to be.
Was it difficult for you to leave your friends at Strongsville going into that environment?
Yeah, definitely. I tried my best to recruit some of the guys. I ended up getting one of my best friends to come there with me, so that helped. But I think leaving an environment you're comfortable with is really hard for anybody, but Walsh is such a special place with people from all over. So I was never really worried about it. From the minute that I shadowed, from the minute that I got there, I knew that Walsh was going to be a place that I could really step into and make myself a home for. So
absolutely. Walsh Jesuit Boys Soccer, obviously, as you mentioned, is a program that goes back many, many years when John Kistner was the head coach. Your dad was playing for him. So you come into this program that has this long history. Was your dad in his second or first year when you came in?
So my dad was in his second year when I got there.
Okay. So your dad had 1 season under his belt at that point. You're coming in and your dad's kind of trying to rewrite the tradition. The program had been down for a few years, and coming in, your dad was kind of the driving force, and let's get Walsh Jesuit Soccer back back to the top level. What did you guys talk about when you were a freshman? What was his expectations for you, and what were your expectations for yourself?
Yeah, so I think the things we talked about were basically how we envisioned building Manta as well. I think we envisioned building Walsh in the same way, as just trying to find good people, good players as well, obviously helps, but trying to find people that we knew could mesh together in a chemistry aspect, because that's really the most important thing, in my opinion, in the high school soccer scene. Was just trying to find, just trying to find people together that knew how to play, knew how to really communicate together and stuff like that. So trying to get Walsh back to the top was the things that he explained to me was, like I said, the guys that were best friends, the guys that had played together throughout their entire soccer career. So in our envision of Walsh soccer was a place that was family, that a place was obviously a lot of good soccer players, but just a bunch of good people in general.
And you coming into the building, into the locker room for Walsh Jesuit, your freshman, sophomore year, what were some things that you personally wanted to establish with the program and the team? Any types of traditions, anything that you wanted to make sure was instilled in this team throughout your 4 years and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to establish a sense of leadership. I mean, we had a lot of freshman duties, as you want to say, which most programs do. But when I got to be a captain my junior year, I realized that was something I didn't want. I talked to my dad. I realized that it should be the juniors and seniors carrying balls around or setting up before practice, or the first one's there and the last one's to leave. Just because I think that sets a very good example. Instead of, if you're the freshman, like my freshman year, it was the seniors, you guys do this, we're out of here, stuff like that. So, I mean, we were 6-11 my freshman year. I loved all the guys on my team, but we weren't the most competitive, and it wasn't the best habits to be built throughout those years. So I knew that as soon as I got the captain's band, gratefully enough, my junior year, that I wanted to instill a lot of things with not only the guys that were older with me, but the guys that were coming into the program, that this is a place where we're going to win. This is a place where we're going to take everything we do seriously, and it's going to be something that is passed along to all future classes going forward.
When you got the captain's armband your junior year, did you feel any added pressure because your dad was the coach, or did you feel more of a sense of greater responsibility?
I mean, everybody's going to feel that pressure coming in. I mean, dad's the coach, got to wear the captain's armband. Everybody was knowing who you were at your time, trying to be the best player it could be, but also trying to set a good example. But I never really saw it as pressure. I saw it as, wow, I'm going to be a captain of the team that I've always looked up to, and all these guys that I've watched play throughout the years, and finally it's my turn. So it was more of just me being really gracious and really happy for the opportunity, more than being scared for something that I really couldn't control.
You mentioned all the guys you've gotten to watch play over your career. Can you pinpoint one pre-you or your dad memory being a part of the program that you can remember watching Walsh soccer growing up?
Ooh, pre-me was my dad's first year. Because unfortunately, it's kind of hard to get out to Walsh games. That's how far I was. So my dad's first year, we played at Hudson. Or no, it was either Twinsburg or Hudson. We played at somebody and was at somewhere. I don't remember. But we scored a golden goal in a game that we probably should not have won. And I just remember my dad running as fast as he could down the line and guys taking their shirts off. And for me, never really being in a situation like that, especially because club really doesn't get that passionate until you've experienced it for a high school team. So I think just seeing how real soccer can get and how passionate it was and how special it was to a community when you saw teachers and parents crying and hugging each other for a goal in a district semifinal that, looking back on it now, really wasn't crazy game enough to be in, but just to see how special soccer was in some people's lives was really awesome.
So let's talk about your junior year. Now the program is kind of going over that hump. You're in a leadership position with your friends. Talk about your junior season and how you felt going into your senior year confidence-wise.
Yeah, so I think my junior year really helped. I'd finally gotten into that 9, the striker position, instead of playing a little lower down like I had to because of the size differential that I had going into it. So I think my junior year really built confidence, being like, I'm here now. I know I can do it. I have done it. I did it the year before. I think I had something like 10 and 15 my junior year. So I knew the goals and assists could come. I knew I just had to be confident and continue to put a smile on and continue to be this happy guy that I knew that was going to allow me to be the best player that I could.
And then heading into your senior season, you're named captain again. This is a year that the expectations are very high for your program. It's your final year playing for your dad. Talk about the preseason and how did you guys prepare to make that jump in your senior season?
Yeah, so I think looking into it, that whole summer kind of training for it was obviously more of a sad thing, which, like you said, I viewed it as last year for me with my dad, last year for me with Walsh. Didn't know where my future was going to hold for me. But then as soon as the soccer starts, you just realize that you're playing with your best friends. You're playing for one of the best programs around. You you love the game. You love going out every day. Practice for some people is a hassle. Practice for me was my favorite part of my day. So I loved everything going into it. I mean, I didn't really see it as pressure. I really just viewed it as me being very grateful for every opportunity I had.
What's a typical Walsh Jesuit practice session like for you guys? I've driven my car down the hill a couple times just to get stuff out of our locker room, and it looks very high energy, very energetic. You guys have music playing. Sounds like you guys are having all kinds of fun while still getting work done. Talk about what that training session is like.
Yeah, so my freshman year, I realized that the no music, the serious practice really wasn't the best, because after an 8-hour school day, the last thing you want is to take notes at practice or try to focus as hard as you can. So I think what I told my dad, and a lot of things that he realized going into it, being the people person that he likes to be, was you get down there, you get down there as soon as school ends, you start in the locker room. We start in the locker room every day. You ask people how they're doing. You talk to people. Lockers aren't picked. They're assigned because you want to be by different people from different classes just so the chemistry can get better. Then as soon as we get out there, it's a team lap. It's trying to build chemistry even more. And then one of the things my dad does differently from everybody is he hates running. Running was never really his thing. He likes to play with the ball. So we do a lot of small-sided, a lot of games, a lot of competitiveness. We have winners after practice. The losers get punished. It's obviously not running, but it's a big win thing, because we realized after a year of down and under 500 that the way you build a winning program is to instill winning in absolutely everything you do. So our goal was to just try to build winning in everything we could, and I think it worked out in the end.
A lot of people view you, Brady, as somebody that is very fast with their feet. You know, the media up in the press box at Walsh has said many times on games that I've worked for, said, man, like that Brady kid is really, really fast with his feet. I've never seen anything like it. Have you heard these types of comments, and what do you do to prepare that?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the comments. You know, athleticism is not something that people control, and obviously I've worked to get to that point. So I really appreciate all those comments. I mean, it makes me smile, but something I work on is just during quarantine, when a lot of people were sitting down and stuff, I credit my parents, really my mom and my dad, who told me I need to be out there training. And I was never really the fastest guy growing up, but I think for a year of just doing speed and agility stuff, not even touching a ball half the days, it was just running around my neighborhood, running as much as I could, training within my feet on speed ladders at the field house that obviously I was lucky enough to have, but just a lot of training that went into it, with obviously the God-given athleticism that I had was something that wouldn't take for granted. So, I mean, the speed helps, but a lot of work went into it.
And you mentioned that you're obviously a striker. You're mentioning your athleticism now. You're the first field player that we've had on breaking lane since I started. So something we haven't tried yet, I'm going to try it now before we get into some of your senior season accolades, is I'm going to throw a ball on in front of you and show the viewers that athleticism and how quick you are with your feet. Go ahead and set your mic down. Let's see it.
Let's do it. See if I can do this. Or we just turn?
Yes, sir.
Those shoes are a little loose, so they're down.
Excellent shots. Excellent shots at Kronis Academy. All right, so let's jump into your senior season accolades. Let's talk a little bit about the season first, actually. So your program does finally get over that 500 hump, more than over the 500 hump. You guys have one of the best seasons in recent program history. Talk about how you went into that and how you were feeling heading into the postseason.
Yeah, so the postseason was just a lot of the same things that we went into the regular season with. You know, every team has their hiccups. We had a little bit of a struggle throughout the middle of the season chemistry-wise that we knew we had to overcome to get there. So I think going into the playoffs, we all expected to be to the point that we got to. But at that time, it was just taking it game by game, trying to actually get to that point without getting embarrassed early on in the playoffs that we knew we would all remember. So,
how did you, as a leader, you mentioned a little bit of like things early on that you had to get over. How did you as a leader take that into your own hands and kind of wipe that away to finish out your season?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we did was in our locker room, we had a big name of the school that we were playing next with all their players' accolades and their season stats on our whiteboard and stuff, instead of having a bracket of everywhere we needed to go and it was the state final at the end like we did in years past. So, I mean, like I said, it was just really game by game. We knew that every team, we had the target on our back. We were the 2 seed going into it or whatever we were. But I think it was just really about trying to stay focused on where we were and who our next opponent was and just playing like we knew how to.
Break down the playoff run game by game. What was the mindset going into each game that you played leading all the way up to the state final?
So we played Max Hayes first, which was a rough one for them, unfortunately, but we had fun. That one was it was a lot of these early on games, unfortunately, are some of the better teams versus the teams that might not have had a better season. So I think you look at it as a trap game, and you look at it as if we aren't going to come out and play as we know we can, then this could be the end of it. So before every game, we all got together, we all got in a circle, and we said it doesn't end today. So after Max Hayes was Cuyahoga Falls. Cuyahoga Falls was 6 or 7-0. So that was fun, a little bit of a rivalry game that we've built throughout the years that we got to win. So that one was the game that I broke the points and assists record. So that one holds a special place in my heart too. So after that was Solon. Solon was a very tough opponent. We knew that they wanted us bad. We knew that they were posting stuff on social media, stuff like that they wanted us. And so that one was a fun one that we really enjoyed. Obviously won that one. Moving on, we went to Wadsworth to play the regional final. Beat them in that game, which was, I think it was the same score. They're on 3-0 for that one. So that was a special one. I was hurt in that game. Didn't know if I was going to play, but nothing was going to take me out of those games.
Sure.
Because it was obviously the most fun I've had playing soccer and ball in my entire life. So after that was Dublin Scioto, however you want to pronounce it. I obviously do not, but that one was probably my favorite Walsh Jesuit game. Under the lights in Columbus with as big of a student section as we could have hoped for at that time. We were down till about 6 minutes left, and we scored 2 goals back to back to end up winning. So those games I will never forget that playoff run. I will never forget who we played, where we played, how we played, or stuff like that. So the playoff one was really something special. Unfortunately, it came to an end in the state final, but not really what I think of when I look back on our season.
Talk about the state semifinal. We'll talk about both games a little bit. Talk about the state semifinal. Obviously, that's the furthest that the boys program has reached in, I think, since 2006 was the number. Talk about how your team went into the state semifinal knowing that you were one step away from a goal you've been working towards since your freshman year.
Yeah, so, I mean, our goal, obviously, was state final, like you said, but we knew that going into that game, this was it. Because the feeling of actually getting to Columbus and doing all the prep work before was kind of the best part about the state final. Obviously, we didn't know that yet. But
sure.
We knew that we needed to get there. It couldn't end short. We needed to get to our goal, which was to get to a state final. And unfortunately, with about 10 minutes left, it looked like we weren't going to get there. But it was the same. It was the story of our season. It was the guys, the seniors on our team, that this was it for them. This was their soccer career coming down to the last 6 minutes of this game in a really cool atmosphere with people singing, people chanting throughout the whole game. So I think when it was Colin O'Connor that scored at the end, it was a scrappy goal. Obviously, he put it in the back of the net. And if you've seen any of those videos, It's just about as crazy as you can imagine a soccer game getting. So I think that game was, like I said, was my favorite just because of how much heart and passion that had finally built up and everybody just let it out in that moment. So it was really something special.
So you guys win that game. You get to Columbus in the state final. Mm-hmm. It's the first time at Walsh Jesuit that the boys and the girls had made it since 2006. What was the energy like around the school? And obviously, I think the football team was in the district final in the playoffs. So lots of really good sports energy at Walsh Jesuit. How did you guys feel like it was at school, knowing that you had 2 teams in the state final going into that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it was something we talked about with the girls the whole time. Obviously, the girls had won the year before, and we were trying to get back to that point with them. So we knew that they were capable of it. It was really special for us because we had finally got back to it when they were just about as happy for us as they were for them. You see, they had their watch parties and stuff like that. We did too for them. So building it together with both programs was honestly my favorite part about it. Just to go to their games, hope for them to win, and then you turn around the next day and they're at our games. And the whole school knew how good we both were. The whole school knew what we were capable of. The whole school obviously came out to support, or at least half or a quarter, whatever it was. But I mean, we had pep rallies before. We had people who I'd never talked to, teacher-wise, student-wise, coming up to us, just telling us about how special they thought it was. So it was definitely a feeling that I will never experience at Walsh again, and definitely one of the best things that Walsh had given me throughout my soccer career.
Let's talk about what led up to Columbus. Obviously, some of the best memories, like you mentioned, are just being with your teammates, despite no matter what happens in the game. What was your team's process leading up to Columbus? Not even necessarily on the soccer side. What did you guys do heading into that game?
Yeah, so we had practiced the morning of the game. We knew that our game was going to be later. We knew that it was raining at the time, so we knew we had to get out there and actually feel the ball on the turf. So it was a lot of mental stuff. We stayed in a hotel down there, obviously, before to watch the girls the night before, which had the same fortune as us, but not really something I remember. Like I was saying, it was more of just the experience that we went through. Hanging out in the hotel room before, watching soccer games, talking to everyone like, wow, I can't believe we're actually here. So it was more about the experience, and that's something that I would take with me for the rest of my life.
And then break down the game a little bit. Obviously, the result, not what you were looking for, but you get out on the turf at historic Crew Stadium. What was that feeling like when you first walked out of the locker room behind the goal?
Yeah, you walk out of the locker room and you immediately see the maroon and gold and New Albany's whole student section and the entire one half of the stadium filled with people that you've talked to and looked forward to for this exact moment my entire soccer career and everybody else's. So I think when you finally get on that field and finally see it, you realize how special the sport really is and how dedicated some people are and how much has actually gone into the moment that you're in right now. So even during the game, I tried to take my time and really just appreciate everything that was going on, appreciate all the people that were there. So I'm glad I did that, and there's a lot of things that I remember about that game.
And that state final obviously went down to a penalty shootout. What were you and your team talking about heading into that penalty shootout? How did you, as a captain, pull your goalie Quinn aside and say, like, this is your moment? What did you guys do going into a penalty shootout, where at that point, I think that's the ultimate equalizer no matter who you're playing in any soccer game? What were you guys thinking heading into a penalty shootout?
Yeah, so starting with Quinn, we knew Quinn was one of the best goalies in the state at the time. We knew Quinn was going to give us everything we had. Obviously, the shootout didn't go the way we wanted, but we don't get there without him. We don't get there without our back line, everybody in that. So the shootout, just talking to our team, was just, this is a fun part. This is what we've worked towards our entire lives. Even the one that we missed, which was eventually the one that we lost on, wasn't a bad penalty. It's one of my best friends. It's a guy that I know I would trust a million times to get through there, and I trusted in the moment as well. So it was just a lot of, we trust you. This is what you worked for your entire life. Now it's time to go put it out there.
So that game ends, you head back into the locker room. Obviously, sad is the correct word, but how did you and your teammates kind of rally together? What did your dad maybe say to the team? How were you guys able to cope with the fact that you did not get the result?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there isn't a lot of words that put it into perspective that you can honestly say in that moment. Sure. To where anybody's going to change their mind. But just a lot of the speeches that went through, all the captains talked, all the seniors talked. My dad obviously talked, all the coaches talked. So it was, in that moment, really wasn't sadness. It was more of appreciation, happiness that you had all gotten to experience this together. The sadness really hit later on when you realized that it was over, and not so much the game had ended the way that you didn't want to, but more of my Walsh career and everybody else's, and the 2025 class was over. So, I mean, dealing with it was hard. Dealing with it today is hard. Dealing with it tomorrow will be hard. But I think when I look back on it, I don't really think about the result. I think about the great times we had and the awesome experience that Columbus was.
Absolutely. You mentioned you haven't even cleaned out your locker yet, so the feeling definitely still there. You're a Warrior forever, nonetheless. Let's talk about some of your season accolades. You finished All-American, first team, All-Region first team, All-Ohio first team, Akron Player of the Year, Akron Offensive Player of the Year, Akron Beacon Journal MVP, WJ's all-time points getter, and WJ's all-time leading assister. Let's start with the big one, All-American. What was that experience like for you? You got to go down to Chicago with that. You went with two other players from the school on the girls' side. How were you feeling when you were announced as an All-American?
Yeah, so when I asked my dad my freshman year, I asked him, what's an All-American? And he kind of explained it to me, and I just laughed because, I mean, that was incredible to even think about at the time and really didn't seem realistic. And even going into the season, my dad was asking me, like, what is your goal? Set a goal. I'm like, Ohio would be nice. Any accolade to me I'm very grateful for, stuff like that. So I think when All-American finally came out, it was definitely something that was awesome, especially dealing with the end of the season and how it actually went. So the experience in Chicago was unbelievable. The whole ceremony was great. Being there with Hannah and Reagan was just as nice because they're pros at that point, so they got to walk me through everything. Being with them was awesome. Being in Chicago with my dad was just as special, and I'm forever grateful for everything that the All-American committee and whatever you want to call it gave to me.
How did you and your family share that moment?
It was very nerve-wracking because when my dad found out the date that it was coming out, it was actually a day later than it was. So I was a little upset that I didn't get anything. And then I was in school. My dad called me. He said, "What do you do after school?" I'm going to go get food. So my friends, he said, "No, come home." So I thought I was in trouble, whatever. Then I finally got the news that it was what I was hoping for. So it was really special. I got to share it with my parents and all my siblings and tell my family and all my friends and all the teammates that made this possible, because obviously it's not just me. That was a team award in my view. So it was really special.
And then the other big one on that list is obviously the all-time points getter for Walsh Jesuit. Did you think that was something that was at all possible for you coming in your freshman year?
I'm going to be honest with you, not really. It was something that I never even realized. I didn't even realize we kept track of that at the con. Obviously, that was my dad doing all that he knew that gratefully that I was possible of doing. And my development throughout the years got to that point as my goals and assists grew a little bit each year. So when we went into that season, it was, you got to get to this number and this number to actually break it, which you didn't even think about the year before.
Right.
But then it really started to feel real. And then middle of the season, I didn't have nearly the stats that I needed to get it until the end, when I finally started to kind of go over the hill and go over that hump that I knew that I needed to get to actually break those records that I thought about. And then when they were actually broken, it was Cuyahoga Falls, like I'd said before. And right after my dad took me out, got to share a special moment with him and all my teammates that knew that the record was coming. So not just me, obviously I got to put the ball in the back of the net, but it was everybody that got to that point. It was the defense that were starting breaks for me so I could run down the line and do stuff like that. But I'm very grateful for my teammates, for my dad, for all the assistants, for everybody that helped me get to that.
Obviously, that was a really long-standing record. Now it's you. The tough question, do you think it's ever going to get broken?
I mean, I hope it gets broken. I hope the program continues to succeed year after year. It's not something that I'm going to keep me up at night if somebody's breaking it or stuff like that. Because like I said, I want it to be broken. I want somebody to come in this year, whether it's Freddie this year who has a chance to do some special things, or it's Colin who might be up top, or like I was talking about Novak, stuff like a lot of guys that are on the team that I know can do a lot of special things. A lot of guys that I hope break records at Walsh, because I want the program to succeed and I want to come back to Walsh games and be like, that's a guy that I know can break that record. So
absolutely. Before we get into what you just recently announced to close out the Walsh Jesuit chapter, what type of legacy do you feel that you left, whether it's on the field, off the field, and what are you hoping that Walsh Jesuit players and teachers, parents, fans remember about Brady Catanzarite?
It's not so much on the field, because unfortunately people weren't at every game. Although I'd love them to be, they weren't at every game. They didn't get to see the highs and the lows of my soccer career. I hope it's just they remember me as the guy who wanted the school to be as best as it could. I wanted the program to be the best as it could. I wanted everybody to succeed. I try to be the best cheerleader for everybody as I can be. So I think if anybody thinks of me, I think one word would just be leader. One word to just anything describing me as somebody that wanted everybody else to succeed around him.
Absolutely. So recently you did just commit to a school. I'll let you make that announcement yourself. Brady, where are you playing college soccer for the next 4 years?
I will be playing at Ohio Wesleyan University in Columbus. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Talk about the recruiting process for you specifically. Obviously, you just committed 2 weeks ago almost. What were you thinking committing a little bit later than others? Were you starting to get worried at all? How was the process like for you?
Yeah, so I don't think it was really worried for me, because I had a lot of very good opportunities that I could have chosen. I could have chosen to go farther south, which was my original dream, which is because my dad went to Charleston to play. He has told me forever that this is what we want to do. And I think that I've come to the realization myself that maybe I wanted to go farther and experience life on my own. But then as the decision started to get closer to, I realized how important family is to me. I mean, we've talked about it pretty much the whole time of year. That's family's the reason I'm at this point in my life. So I think Wesleyan provided not only the best soccer opportunity, but the best opportunity for me to stay connected to my family and my 3 younger siblings who are all starting to go through high school and finish off their careers as well. So I think Coach Weiss was the guy that I sort of went throughout my process. I actually didn't visit until later on. But being on the Wesleyan campus, being with Coach Weiss was everything that I hoped for, soccer-wise and school-wise and socially. So I'm very happy with my decision, and I'm very excited for the process that goes into everything going forward.
What were some of the early conversations like? When did you start to think that Wesleyan might be for you?
When a lot of my peers around me were committing. Sam Robledo was one of them, was also an All-American that went to Hudson that I grew up playing against. Some of the guys that played in Columbus that I grew up playing club with. So when I started to realize that this team and this program is going to be really something special and really competitive, which was, like I said, which was my favorite part about soccer, was the passion, the competitiveness. I realized that I can get that at Wesleyan, which is one of the most winningest programs in the history of college soccer. So I knew that going to a program like this with a lot of guys that I've played against, and I know how good they are and how good they will continue to be. It was an easy decision for me.
What is the ceiling for Brady Catanzarite in college? What are you hoping to do? Not even necessarily in terms of stats. What would you like to accomplish at the next level?
I just want to accomplish the same thing that I strive for at Walsh, was to make an impact on people's lives, both on and off the field, was to contribute to a team so that people have great soccer memories, but also contribute off the field so that people remember me as a person that in 10 years they could tell their kids, like, oh, I played with him, or I knew him. Or if I walk into somebody on the street, it's not like, Dad, who's that? It's, oh, that's Brady. Like, you talk about him. Just trying to be remembered as much as I can in people's lives and trying to make as much of a positive impact as I can.
Before we get ready to close out, one of the big things I always touch on with my podcast, the big point is Northeast Ohio soccer. You're obviously very involved at the club level, had a successful high school tenure. How do you view the current state of soccer in Northeast Ohio?
I view it as the same thing I view as soccer in America, that it's always and continue to will be on the up and coming, and that more people need to be telling their kids, and more kids need to be realizing how special soccer really is and how important it is in this community, and how good of an opportunity that any club, not even Manta, any club, any high school can provide. So just how special soccer's been in my life and my family's life, and how special it can be in people's life if they really take it seriously.
Absolutely. And final thing for you, I always like to give everybody the opportunity to thank anybody that has helped you throughout your career as a soccer player. Obviously, you've talked about your dad a lot. Anybody else that you want to touch on throughout your time that has made you who you are as a player?
I mean, just anyone in my family, any teammates, every Walsh soccer player, every Manta soccer player, my grandparents, my cousins, my uncles, every person has made an impact on my life. Even if it was negative, it was something that I took on the shoulder and something that I have allowed myself to grow with. And obviously, Logan, you. So I appreciate everything you've done for me. Robby back there too, helping my clips get out there. So I appreciate everything that everybody's done.
Absolutely. Brady, best of luck to you at Ohio Wesleyan. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Of course.
And once again, this has been the Breaking Lanes podcast presented by Kronis Academy and the Visual Kingdom and Robby Vallarelli with assistant producer Dan Groen. And we'll see you right back here next time on the show. All right, cool. Then we got one more thing for you. Okay. Everybody that's on signs this Kronis kit. Cool, let's do it. Where you want. Sounds good.
How much media training have you had, bro?
That you good?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll take a quick picture too for the promo.